everyone, Zanine White here for Hollywood Mindset TV. Today I am so excited to introduce you to Michelle Aubrey. I got to know her a couple weeks ago. She is someone who specializes very much in mindset, and since this is a show all about Hollywood mindset, we thought that she'd be a perfect guest to have on the show. Michelle, thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm really excited to have you.
Oh, I'm so excited as well. This has been on my mind ever since we met, and I've been so excited about getting to talk to you again and talk all things mindset.
Awesome. Very cool. So before we get started, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tell everyone just a little bit about Hollywood Mindset TV, how we got started, and what we do. Mm-hmm. So working with people in the entertainment industry, we've realized that a lot of people are putting the cart before the horse. And what do I mean by that? Basically, they're more focused on getting an agent or a manager, and they're not as focused on the most important things which are actually like booking work, making money, and actually having the mindset that makes a manager or an agent want to work with them. So that's why I'm so excited to have you on the show today, Michelle, because we really just want to speak directly to mindset today, because there are so many people who have to have their minds right in order to actually book the jobs that they want. So before we get started in our conversation about mindset, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into becoming an expert on mindset?
Yeah, of course. So the first thing that I always like to tell people is that my accent's New Zealand. Typically when I start speaking, they stop hearing what I'm saying and they're trying to work out where I'm from. So I'm going to get that out of the way first. And so I went from New Zealand and I ended up living in England for a little while. I did a bunch of different things. I worked as a live-in carer for people with spinal cord injuries, able-bodied, had an accident, ended up in a wheelchair. So that was amazing, amazing work to really get a decent perspective on life. And then I ended up at some point opening a boxing business with a really great friend of mine. And we called it Evolution Me, and it was a boxing training class for women to use as stress relief and empowerment. And I loved it. I loved everything about it. I was boxing for, about 6 years prior to that. I was part of an amateur squad when I was in London, and being able to provide this work with people was tremendous. I knew that I had a gift to be able to speak with people in a particular way, but I didn't really know what I was doing. Mm-hmm. So fast forward about a year, I ended up moving to Canada, and I knew that I wanted to hone my skills. So I knew I wanted to learn how to actually deliver and develop my gift. And so I ended up getting some coach training with an organization called Accomplishment Coaching that are based in the States, and now moving and taking over Canada. Yes. And then, so I've been a professional coach for 3 years now. I have my own private practice. I lead within Accomplishment Coaching and developing new coaches and leaders. And it's working with people and being able to support them to find the thing for themselves that's getting in the way of everything that they want, whether it's achievements in their professional career, whether it's their marriage. I mean, the way that you do one thing is how you do everything. Yeah. So if something's not working in one place, if it's your career, then it's probably not working in your marriage and with your parents or with your kids, or however it usually works.
That's awesome. Yeah. So for a lot of people, mindset's kind of a woo-woo thing. Like I have so many people like, oh yeah, I took this course, and they talked about mindset, and they're almost exasperated by the thought of having to even deal with mindset. So for someone who is kind of rolling their eyes at me for talking mindset right now, can you kind of give if you were explaining this to a 5-year-old, and I know it's definitely not a 5-year-old topic, but how would you break it down to someone to make it really understandable why it's so important to work on mindset?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that one of the biggest things that we need to realize is that our brain, like our mind, is one of the most important things for running our body. If we don't have that, it's pretty hard to do anything. And so I think that the reason why this is so important is for us to learn and understand why we do the things that we do. So if you're an adult and you're trying to get a certain gig or career or shot somewhere doing anything, and you don't know why you do certain things, it's likely going to get in your way. If it's hiding in your blind spot, it's going to get in the way over and over and over again. And you'll just think that that's the way that the world treats you. But really, it's something that you're doing or being that creates that experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so important, because I know I've had the opportunity to work with several different mindset coaches, and something like something that that I'm sure you say a lot too is like, life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you.
Yeah.
And that's something that like you have to understand, like when you're in this context, because we're dealing with a lot of people who are like in the entertainment industry, like if you're not getting the audition, yeah, maybe you're 5'2", and every role that you're trying to get is like for someone who's 5'10" or something like that. Maybe it's something that's silly, but generally there's something more going on inside of you that is making you make those bad choices. So how would you address that with someone? Like if someone came to you and like, okay, I'm like, I keep having the same thing, like I want to give people like simple little tips. Like obviously we can't go too deep on this because you have to work one-on-one with someone or work consistently. But like, what are some tips that you would give someone like when they start seeing like, when you start seeing a recurring pattern in your life, like this always happens to me. Like, how would you give someone like what type of tip would you give someone to kind of like take a step back and examine that on their own?
Yes. So the first thing that I would say is check in to see if it's an external complaint. Are you complaining about the way that the world is or the way that people are? Or even if you notice a massive victim mentality, like, woe is me. Oh, this is always happening to me. Why? As soon as you start a complaint or you're making it all about the external world, the first thing for you to do is check in with yourself. If you are solely responsible for how everything goes next, what is there for you to take responsibility of? Right? Like my boyfriend says something brilliant all the time. He always says, if you're the source of all your problems, then you're also the solution. Now, he didn't come up with that, but he repeats it all the time. That is definitely someone else's quote.
Yeah.
But he repeats it all the time. And it's like, it's so obvious to me with this work that I'm in. And obviously, you know, I need to check myself all the time too, which is why I have my own coach. That as soon as you start noticing that something's happening to you, it's like, oh, hang on, let me check my side of the street. How does this situation continue to happen? And you may not need a coach for that necessarily. I think honestly, you need somebody else to have eyes on you when it comes to what's in your blind spot. Like similar to driving a car, you can't see 360 top bottom. You just can't. But somebody standing outside of you can. And so that's where hiring a coach or having somebody that you work that intimately with on a recurring basis is so, so necessary. So that's the first thing, is checking your side of the street. Like,
how do you work on that self-awareness though? Because it sounds so easy to us because it's something that we do on a daily basis. Because like there are times where I'm like, oh, well, and I'm like, okay, hold on. You have to take a step back and like, you have to like examine this. But like, how do you begin to develop that self-awareness? So could you recommend people journal? Aside, obviously aside from like hiring a coach, like how would you like begin that process?
I think that asking yourself a question of what am I not talking about or looking at? And you could very well journal. You can sit and meditate. You can go to people that you know, like, hey, what do you not know about me? Or what do you often wonder? Because our friends are typically not the people that say the thing that we don't want to hear. They don't want to upset us. They don't want to have confrontation. Typically, some people have got a really good group of friends, and sometimes that can get annoying. That's my group of friends. They're all coaches. They're all leaders, and they're all like, hey, Michelle, what about this? And it's like, I don't want to have that conversation.
Let's relax tonight, guys.
Yes, exactly. So that's like the first thing that I would say is like, take a look at what you're not talking about or what people don't know. Use other people, and you can sit there and journal. Like, what am I not admitting to myself? There are a lot of things that we say we're going to do that we don't do. And we kind of justify, oh, well, I haven't got around to it yet. Just those little things I think is a great place to start. Like similar with the example you gave about the 5'2" for a 5'10". It's like, what are you not owning about yourself, or what do you not talk about? Maybe you don't like being 5'2", but that's something you're avoiding. Right. It's like, it's going to be so different person to person, but check in. What are you not talking about? And what do people not know about you?
Yeah, that's good. What are some stumbling blocks that you've been practicing now for 3 years. So like, what are some common stumbling blocks that you've come upon that like you see a lot?
Well, I'll give you the thing that I think is the biggest one, is that people do not know how valuable they are, and not from arrogance or ego, from their heart, from their highest and best. People, I don't think, have a deep enough connection with who they truly are, and how magnificent they really are. And typically, that we could go into like the conversation of childhood programming. As soon as you're born, like, you're waiting to learn about the world.
Yeah.
And then once you experience X, Y, and Z, you now have your narrative about the world and about yourself. So you begin operating from that place over and over and over again. Yeah. And unless you can do some self-inquiry or have someone to say, hey, why do you keep doing that thing? Or do you notice that you do this? Mm-hmm. A small place to practice is people who interrupt. You might be having a conversation and you notice that you haven't even finished your sentence before the next person's talking. But they don't notice that. They probably don't even think that there's an impact for somebody who might experience it. And checking in like, oh, I do that, right? For yourself, if you notice something within somebody else, that would probably be the second thing, is that when you notice something within somebody else, check that thing in yourself. Whether it's how beautiful they are, how powerful, how funny. If you notice something that you really don't like about somebody else, like, check your side of the street again. Check yourself about that thing. Because typically that thing is about you. Yeah. Over and over and over again. Yeah.
I love the saying, check your side of the street, because that kind of, it makes a lot of sense, because so many times, again, people are so willing to point, like, anywhere you go, people are blaming everyone else for everything going on in the world, but they're not checking their own side of the street. They're not checking their side of the story, Yes. So I love that analogy, or that metaphor. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, check your side of the street. There's another stumbling block that I was thinking about as well as I was sharing. Yeah, it's like, check your side of the street, responsibility. The other thing that I have is compassion. So I think that probably the entertainment industry would look at this a lot. Mm-hmm. My experience of it is there's a ton of rejection. Like, it's not, you get one break and then that's it, and your career begins. It's shot after shot after shot, miss after miss after miss. And we as humans naturally, I think, are pretty damn hard on ourselves. Mm-hmm. That there is an automatic that we have that will beat ourselves up, and not from being a cause for being better, but like ridicule everything that we did. So I think compassion is another big stumbling block, and the missing of it would probably be my third one.
Yeah, it's true, because I know a lot of people are very, like you said, like, the entertainment industry is very much full of no's and silence. Like, sometimes you don't even get a no, you just don't get an answer at all. Yeah. And it's like, well, what did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? But just realizing that as long as you go in and you do the best that you can in that moment, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just maybe you were not right for that moment. Mm-hmm. So, like, being able to, like, just flip that script is something that's so important. That especially, every actor deals with it. It's not just in the beginning of your career. Like, no matter what level you're on, you may just not be right for that moment, but knowing I love everything you said, like, knowing yourself, knowing your worth, knowing your value is so important, because if you walk into a situation and you don't have that within you, if you're not like, okay, you know what, no matter what happens here, like, my value remains the same no matter what happens, and you don't have that compassion with yourself, then it's a recipe for disaster, really.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And other people can smell it on you. Mm-hmm. If you're walking into something, like, I have an assertion that even if you're extremely talented, but you don't own your power or your talent, it's not magnetic. Yeah. And that will get people no's a lot of the time too.
Yeah. Yeah. Because very much in all industries, not just the entertainment industry, but energy is something that people read very quickly. Like, I know there are certain people, when I'm in a room with them, like, I'm like, okay, I can take on the world. And then there are other people I could walk into the room and feel like, oh my God, I could take on the world. And after 2 minutes, I'm like hiding under my desk, like, trying, you know what I mean? So it's it's so important, because when you surround yourself by people who are on the same level as you, and people who are trying to move forward, and people who are trying to grow, and people who have all of that sense, like, that is very contagious. Whether it's good energy or bad energy, it's always very contagious.
Yes. Yeah, 1,000%. I can remember having conversations with clients, like when they first get into the coaching world, like if I'm their first coach, and I will speak to them a little bit about energy. And it sounds, when you're completely normal, I call it, when you've done no personal development work, it sounds very woo-woo.
Yeah.
Right, because people can't see it or touch it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the example that I always give is the expression of cut the tension with a knife.
Yeah.
Like that is energetic. You can walk into a room with two people that have just absolutely gone at it like dogs and cats,
mm-hmm.
and you can pick it up.
Yeah.
And that's like an opportunity for us as humans to start getting to know what's going on in the room, getting to know what's going on for ourselves, our intimate partners, like co-workers, colleagues, all of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
It's a massive, massive opportunity for that.
Yeah, it's so true. So what was your life like before you really started, before you discovered mindset work?
Oh, tough. I mean, I almost would put Oprah in the category of mindset work. So I don't know if there was ever a time, but before I got into it professionally, I was a horse rider. So I rode horses from the time I was 4 until I was about 20. I had numerous different animals. I was very competitive. Always loved being with people.
Mm-hmm.
So I was that person in the friend group or the workplace that people came to when they needed something. It's like, again, I sort of spoke to that gift earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I had a safe place for people to land.
Yeah.
And for some reason that, I continue to own for myself is that I have some wisdom.
Yeah.
That there's actually something about what I have to say to people that has some credibility, regardless of it being used on, somebody that's, pretty big or whatever. Like, it's just something that people really believe and trust.
Yeah.
And so I was always that person. I ended up going into real estate because I just loved working with people. I loved first home buyers. They were the best.
Yeah.
The first couple of $100,000 spending, purchasing their future. This is where they were going to have their first child. This is, the house that they were going to move into after they get married.
Yeah.
That was such a great rush for me. And then I moved to England. So it was horses, real estate, England. And then that's what really transformed my life, is really being able to practice my gift with people through boxing, and then ended up doing it professionally.
That's awesome. So I know I touched on this before, but like if someone is watching this, they're like, okay, you know what? It's not nearly as woo-woo as I thought when I first got started. So how would you recommend someone get started? Like, again, just like the beginners, like if you could give someone like a beginner's packet that was like 3 pointers on like how to get started, what would that look like?
Yeah, so the first thing that I would recommend is potentially, so my first recommendation would be reading some of Brene Brown's work. Go read Daring Greatly, go read Dare to Lead, go read some of Brene's work. Mm-hmm. She's like the godmother of this work in the tangible, like the research. She has the research for the work that we do. And it's amazing. So that would be the first place that I would look. For anybody who is, I read all the books, I listen to all the podcasts, right? Because that's kind of the starting ground. But when you've been doing this for 6 months all on your own, and your intention is that that's your self-help, go hire someone.
Yeah.
At that point, you want to actually partner with somebody, because I guarantee you, no matter how much you're reading or ingesting through knowledge and information, you're not practicing it. You're actually not implementing it into your life, which is probably why you keep taking on the information and reading more and more books. Like there's implementation and some action that's required as well. And I personally think there's no better way than doing that with another human being that's going to actually be able to talk back to you, as opposed to just your own blind spots feeding your stuff.
Yeah.
But that would be my first thing to get going, is Brene Brown all the way. Even like getting into like meditative practices. I've got a really great friend in England who had never done any personal development work, started getting into meditation quite heavily. And the way that he speaks now is very similar to me. In fact, I got on a call with him just a couple of days ago, and his insights were just crazy, the things that he was saying to me, I was like, who am I talking to? You never used to speak like this. And it was just amazing. Like, it's like, that's what I would tell a client, or that's what I would tell somebody. So that's another place, is like Brene Brown, meditation, podcasts with people that are really into being better for yourself, and not necessarily to make a lot of money or to achieve anything. I really believe that the deep inner work makes the outside work.
Yeah.
That's really what I believe. And then go invest in yourself with people, whether it's a mastermind, whether it's a one-on-one coach, some sort of mentor, but somebody that's going to really support you and hold you accountable in some kind of way where you've got skin in the game.
Yeah.
That's going to ensure your success and your own personal transformation.
Yeah. I love that, because I mean, in the entertainment industry at all levels, people have coaches, whether, and we can go to sports too. Like I'm a huge Patriots fan, US football.
Right.
And Tom Brady, who's like the greatest quarterback of all times, he has a mindset coach. He has a coach who, just the mechanics of throwing, his like overall conditioning, his food, like and not to mention all the coaches that the Patriots have too. So like, no matter what you're doing, like you always need coaching, you always need to be pushing yourself forward, and you always need to be doing the inside work, because without the inside, if you don't believe that you're good enough, it's never going to happen for you.
Totally.
So I think that's like the crux of everything that we're saying here, is like, you have to do the work. Like, of course you have to hone your craft, and like we have to hone our craft too with what we do. But you have to do that inside work, because if you don't do that inside work, you can certainly reach a level of success, but the cap on it is going to be whatever you believe you can achieve.
Yes.
That's the crux of all of it.
Yeah. That's like, I talk to my clients all the time about limiting possibility. Like, where's your ceiling?
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. Like, if we go to like corporate workers for a moment, anybody that works in the corporate side of the entertainment industry, they might look at, if they're going for a particular role, I want between this and this. I have a sense that that's typically how it goes. I want between this and this. You've kind of got a range.
Yeah.
But really what you want is that higher end. You just think you're only going to get the lower end. So you put it out there so as not to get disappointed.
Yeah.
But if people really looked at what was possible and asked for what they wanted, then it's probably more likely that they're going to get the higher range.
Yeah. 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 I totally agree with you, because, I was in the corporate world for a while, and there was definitely that glass ceiling, but it was because I believed it. It wasn't necessarily because it was true. It's because someone told me it was true and I believed it. And like, so
yeah,
it's like, that's where the mind is tantamount to anything, because if you believe, like, what a lot of people don't realize is, like, if you believe you're healthy, you're going to be healthier. If you believe you're sick, you're going to be sick. If you believe you're successful, you're going to be successful. If you believe you're a loser, you're going to be a loser. Yeah. So like it is really all here. Like, there's so much power in your brain, in your mind, and your mindset. And I love also that you mentioned Brene Brown, because again, for all the people who are like, oh yeah, like she actually has like a PhD in shame research.
Yeah.
So, like, you're like, if you're like, oh yeah, this is something crazy, this isn't real. Like, there's actually a lot of money being poured into researching the potential of the brain. So it's something, it's really important. And it's something that no matter what facet of the world you're in, it's something we all need to work on. And can you imagine what the world would be like if we all actually like worked on our mindset to be more positive and to be more helpful? Imagine how much better the world would be. So
yeah, well, my like highest level is that I think that it could end war.
It could end war, poverty. I mean, we could, if we all work together, we could cure anything, as long as, like, if we all just took the time and effort into fixing the things that are really important. And what goes on in here is really super important. So
yeah, 1,000%. Yeah, if you can't see the things that are getting in your way, then you're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah, you'll just keep going around and around. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Michelle, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show today. I really enjoyed our conversation. We'll have to do another show sometime so we can go even a little deeper into mindset, because This is one of my favorite subjects, so I was really excited to have you on the show today. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, this has been awesome. And I love anytime I get to have time with you is good with me. So I'm more than happy to do this again.
We'll have to talk more, Michelle, you and I. It'll be awesome.
I think so. Off this.
Yeah, off the record.
Totally.
Well, thank you so much. And just want to thank everyone also for watching this episode of Hollywood Mindset TV. I hope that you enjoyed our episode and you learned something, and definitely make sure that you keep tuned in because we have a lot of amazing guests that are lined up and you never know who's going to show up on the show. So thank you so much for watching Hollywood Mindset TV. Have a great day. Bye.